Всем привет! Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well and staying safe. In this video, I'm going to be going over how to make a reactjs with Three.js video. Just like my previous one with the globe, translated it from just vanilla HTML, CSS, and JS to using the React library, and to kind of give you an example of what this will look like at the very end. It is still work in progress, just FYI, I'm going to be adding more features as we go, but this is it. We have the same title, everything, and then if I click on this, you have the points here, but if I've added some features actually, so if you hover over the dots in the points, it actually gives you a box at the bottom which highlights the post, and if you click on this, it opens up a modal, which gives you the name of the country, followed by different information inside of the data set. So again, this is just a basic proof of concept / minimal viable project, but I figure it's a good starting stepping stone to getting things up and running. So without further ado, let's get into the code. So for starters, I'm using the IDE Visual Studio Code. It's just code.visualstudio.com. You can go to this website, and then it will automatically detect it should automatically detect your browser or operating system, but in the off chance it does not, you can click on this drop down menu and download the necessary version for your personal device. I'm using Windows 10, but this should be able to be used cross-platform. And because we're using React, I'm using Node.js for this. You can download the current version if you want. I'm using Git for my code because I do have a repository which I'm going to try and keep up to date. So this is it, and with all of branch management, you need to also have a repository. I'm using GitHub for mine, but you can use whichever repository you feel comfortable with. So that's kind of like the core setup. And for project-wise, I do have a folder on my desktop which I made called project. Create an empty folder and just have it here if you want, or wherever you want to store your project, that's fine. When you first have Visual Studio installed, it will just ask you to find your project. It'll give you a display, so you just go into the upper left hand corner under open folder, and then you just navigate to where your project is. Since I'm on the desktop and mine is under project, that's my folder. And because I already have this project here, this will be filled, but in your case it should be empty, which is fine. So then what we want to do is create a React project. So after doing the basic installation for Node, Visual Studio obviously, and Git, what we want to do is create a new React project. So I'm going to open up my terminal. More often than not, if you open up VS Code for the first time, it should be here by default, but in the off chance that it is not, you can just go to terminal up here and click new terminal, and it should appear. And this will take you to your root folder, which in this case is project. So if I type ls, because I have one item in here, it's going to show up with that item. If you type ls, there's not going to be anything here, which is fine because we're going to create the new project. So first things first, what I want to do is create a new React project. So I'm going to type in npx, and then I'm going to type create-react-app, and then I'm going to name this whatever the project that you want. In this case, I'm going to say my React 3 app, and then it's going to go through and create a new app. If you do not have the create React app library installed, it'll ask you if you want to create that. You just type in yes or press enter, and it will automatically do the packages and everything for you, so you don't have to do anything along that nature. Okay, so now that we have this, our React app is good to go. But before I continue on, I want to initiate my repository for Git. So inside of So first I'm going to change directory and go inside of my project. So it's going to be cd my React 3 app. So then if I type ls, it's going to give me a list of all this stuff inside my app, which is this right here. And so inside here, I want to do git init. So this has initialized a Git repository. I'm going to type npm space start, and this will open up my React app on the local host 3000. It's going to open up on your default browser, which mine is Mozilla Firefox, but yours will be whatever it is, Chrome, Edge, Firefox, Brave. This is the React app. So now that we have the app up and running, we can actually close out of this because we need to do some package installs. So even though you close it here, it still is going to run on the browser. So to fully close, just close out the tab. What we want to do is install all of the packages we're going to be using for this project. If you open up your package.json, you'll see the latest dependencies here. What we want to do is add the 3 dependency for using Three.js. Then I'm using Material UI for some of the styling. All I need to do is type in npm install, and then I'm going to type in @emotion /react @emotion /styled @mui /material, and then 3. So this is @emotion react is going to be for the React component or dependency, the styled dependency, and then Material UI, and then 3 is obviously the Three.js. So I'm going to do that. At the time of this video, I'm using 3 version 0.142, and then for Material it's 5.8, styled is 11.9, and React is 11.9. This could differentiate based upon what you're doing. Hopefully it won't be too different at the time of viewing, but if it is, just look at what your current version is. But yeah, so as you can see, we have these now installed successfully, and so we can begin to initialize our basic scene. So inside of our source project right here, source folder right here, this is where we're going to keep all of our main components. And then the public, that is just what is going to be used for. We're not really going to touch this. So inside of our source, the index right here is what is going to be rendering to the root DOM. I'm going to clear out my index.js in my source folder, and I'm going to instead change it with the following code. Import React from React, import React DOM from React dash DOM, then I'm going to import app from, and then this is going to be where my app is located. And then in here, I'm going to type react dom.render. And in React, you always need to return some sort of component. You cannot just return multiple components, so I can't just say div and then copy this like 5 times. It's not going to work, because you'll see here that has only one parent element. So in React, instead of doing multiple divs, what I can do is create a render element just like this. So this will enclose all the necessary stuff. So now if I type in div and copy it multiple times, it works just fine, because it's only returning one element. So inside of my empty React render element, I'm going to put in my app component. And this is called a self-enclosed tag. If I didn't want to do this, I just put a closed chevron, and then it would automatically do a closed tag for the app. But I find the syntax to be just a little bit easier. So then at the end of this closed render React component, I'm going to type document.get element by ID, and then it's going to be root. So I'm going to save this. This will be now our index. You do not need the local SVG, so you can get rid of that. You also don't need the index.css, so you can get rid of this too. You don't need the app.test because I'm not going to be doing any unit testing with my app. I'm not going to be doing any web. I'm not going to be doing any setup either, so you can delete that as well. And then the app.css, we will be using this, but we're going to change it from just a regular CSS. So we're going to make it into a module. So I'm going to say app. I'm going to name this to app.module.css. And then remove all of that. Inside of the app.js, get rid of the logo because we no longer have that. And then the app, instead of app.css, is app.module.css. It's going to be styles from. And then in our source, I'm going to have a folder for my assets, such as my images, my API calls, my data, and I'm going to have a folder for my components. So I'm going to right-click on source, create new folder, and type in assets. And then on source, I'm going to right-click again, create new folder, and I'm going to call this components. This is where I can keep all my React components. You could also, in the terminal, type in mkdir, which it stands for make directory, and you can type in some random folder, random. So see, now it's here, but I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to, I don't know, I find right-clicking a little bit easier. And then for our public, what we want to do is get rid of the favicon.ico. We don't need this. We also don't need the logos, so you can just delete those as well. And then we you can keep the manifest if you want, or you can get rid of it. We're not really going to be using any of this. It's just extra stuff that is in every component or every project. But inside our index.html, what we are going to do is change our title. So this is going to be the name of the project. So when we get to your website, you know it says get downloads node.js. That's what this is, the title. So I'm going to call this React 3 app. And then this div ID root is what our index is pointing to. So this is where the component's going to be rendering to. This is just a comment in case the web browser does not support JavaScript. It's going to reply with this text. You need to enable JavaScript to run this app. Actually, yeah, we're not using favco icon, so get rid of that. And we're not using the logo, so get rid of that too. Let's just make sure this runs. But before we do that, inside of our app, what we want to do is put an h1 tag inside here. I'm going to say hello world. So then inside of my terminal, I'm going to press the up arrow key, and it's going to take me to my previously typed command which I wrote, and I'm going to go up until I hit npm start and press enter. You could also just type npm start, I'll do the same thing, but I just wanted to show you that shortcut in case you were not aware of it once the development server starts. And as you can see, we have hello world here, and it's saying hello world from our app.js. Now to just instantiate a basic Three.js scene, I'm going to import the library, and then I'm going to break it out into our own unique components. So from the top, I'm going to say import star as 3 from, and then put 3. And then I am going to change this top button as well, because this is not going to be a function, it's actually going to be a class that we're going to be using. So inside of here, I'm going to put at line 1, import react, comma, space, open close braces, capitalized component from, and then put react, and then instead of function app, I'm going to say class app extends component. Then inside of here, I'm going to put my return or my render, and then inside my render, I'm put in open close braces at the end, and then I'm going to have a return, which is open close parentheses, so like this right here. And then I'm going to say, for right now, I'm just going to go to div, put a placeholder, and then get rid of this right here. If I come back here, refresh, it says placeholder. So now what we need to do, I'm going to create something called component did mount. This is an API call, so when the component first renders to the div to the DOM, it's going to mount whatever is displayed on the scene so we can see it on the screen. Inside of here, I'm going to, underneath this, I'm going to create a function called create scene using camel case, but you can use whatever naming convention is good for you. So inside of this function, I'm going to just instantiate a scene, and because I'm using a class, I'm going to call this, instead of saying let, I'm going to say this.scene, because I want this to be accessed throughout the entire class. So I say this.scene is equal to new capitalized 3.scene. And then I want to create a camera, so say this.camera is equal to new 3.perspective camera. Then I'm going to pass it in the field of view, which is going to be 75. Then I'm going to have the aspect, and it's going to be my window.inner width divided by window.inner height. Then I'm going to have my near set to 0.1, and then I'm going to have my far set to 1000. Then I'm also going to be using orbit controls for this, so I'm going to say this.controls is equal to new orbit controls. And before I continue with this, I need to import the orbit controls. So up here, I'm going to say import open close braces orbit controls, and say from, and then it's going to be 3 / examples / JSM / controls / orbit controls. So unlike the previous thing where I'm using 3.scene, 3.perspective, because I'm importing this component straight from the folder itself, I do not need to put 3 because it's its own entity. And because I have this in braces, I'm just going to be using orbit controls as is. So it's just going to be new orbit controls, not new 3.orbit controls. In vanilla.js, it has to say 3.orbit controls, if I remember correctly, so that is not the case here. Just an FYI, so you do not get confused. So inside of my orbit controls, I have I need to pass 2 variables. The first is going to be the camera, so this.camera, and the second one is going to be what I'm mounted to. In this case, it's the HTML element, so I'm going to say this.mount. And then if we go down to our div right here for the placeholder, I'm just going to instantiate the mount so we can see what that looks like. So inside of our open div here, I'm going to put ref, which is a React class attributes. I'm going to say that is equal to open close braces ref arrow function, and then in parentheses, I'm going to say this.mount is equal to ref this.controls. dot enable zoom is equal to false. We'll be changing this later on, but for now that's what that is. Now we have our scene, we have our camera, we have controls. What do we need now? But our renderer. So I'm going to say this dot renderer is equal to new 3 dot WebGL renderer, WebGL renderer, parentheses, open close braces. Inside here I'm going to turn anti-aliasing to true. That way we can have a smooth scene. And then I want to set the size of the renderer, so I'm going to say this dot renderer dot set size. This will be open close parentheses window dot inner width comma window dot inner height. This dot mount dot append child. Open close parentheses. This dot label. This dot renderer dot DOM element. And then what do I want to do now? Because this is going to be a scene, the camera by default starts at position 0. I'm going to push it back on the Z scale. So I'll say this dot camera dot position dot Z is equal to 20. And get rid of this. Create a new cube. So I'm just going to copy this. So it's const geometry is equal to new 3 dot box geometry. And the material is going to be just color green. The cube is just going to be a mesh of the geometry and material. And then instead of scene.add, it's going to be this dot scene.add. Under here, what I want to do is create a function called start animation. Is going to be an arrow function, and then I'm going to say this dot request ID is equal to window dot request animation frame, and type this dot start animation, and then I'm going to say this dot controls dot update this dot render then it's going to be this dot scene, this dot camera. We can create another function called handle window resize is equal to, and it's going to be an arrow function, say const width is equal to window dot inner width, say const height is equal to window dot inner height. And I'm going to say this dot renderer dot set size is equal to width is going to be width comma height. Then I'm going to put this dot camera dot aspect is going to be equal to width divided by height. And then I'm going to say this dot camera dot update projection matrix. So then in my component did mount, what I want to do is instantiate the scene. So I'm going to say this dot create scene, and then I'm going to add a event handler. So I'm going to say window dot add event listener. Then on here it's going to be resize, and then it's going to pass in the function, which is going to be this dot handle window resize. I'm also going to add the animation, so I'll say this dot start animation, which then gives me this. So if you click on that, you can't zoom in or out, but if we set this to true, now we can zoom in, can zoom out, and do all of this. As you can see, we do have the this right here, this box, So to get rid of that, what we need to do is go into our app.module.css. Inside here, we're going to type our body and put overflow set to hidden. And then we need to put the margin to 0. So now it covers the entire screen. Zoom in, zoom out, and this is our basic Three.js scene. But as I said, we are going to be using multiple components, and we're going to be doing assets and everything. So instead of having this all inside of my app.js, what I want to do is have this in my I want to have this be inside its own component. So inside my components folder, I'm going to right click and first create a new file and call this index.js. And then inside of my components, I'm creating a new folder and I'm going to call this globe. Inside my globe, I want to create two files. First is going to be globe.jsx, and then inside of globe folder, I'm going to create a second file called globe.module.css. So inside of our globe.jsx, we can actually just copy all of the code inside of our app.js. And then instead of calling this app, call this globe. And then inside our index.jsx, export default, and then as globe. And then where we're going to be exporting it from ./globe/globe. So now this turns green, and then inside our app, what we can do is get rid of the 3 stuff, get rid of the scenes, get rid of all of this. So what we're going to do is import open close braces, say globe from, and then it's going to be ./components/index, and then inside of here, what we're going to do is use globe instead. Save this, and that's because in globe we don't have app, but we do have globe.module.css. Come back here, refresh. Still returns the same exact thing, no issues on our part. But now, instead of doing it on the app side of things, we're doing it on the globe side of things. So that is how we create our own component using globe, or that's how we create our own component in React for our Three.js scene. Now what I'm going to be doing is actually downloading the assets that we need. Actually, davidgrice.github.io, and then scroll down to where it says impact hack, click on GitHub. So then inside of here, I have my data images. So in my images folder at the very bottom, you can see we have the earth bump and all of this. So these earth related items we need, and then these space items we need as well. So you can just right click. So you can just open these up in their own tabs. Inside of our assets folder, what we need to do is create a new folder called images. Then create another new folder called API, because I'm going to be doing some API requests later on. Then the last folder I'm just going to call data, because I'm going to have some temporary data. So going back to here, this is going to be for the skybox. So if you right click and press save image as, it's going to take you to whatever is on your, whatever you last opened. So inside of here, go to your project, go to the project you're working on, and then go to the source, assets, and images, and you just want to save the image there. So then, now that we have our images, let's go to the data. And inside of the data, what we want is to grab this final data.json. If you click on raw, it should open up a new tab, or actually just open up a tab and it looks like this. So you just click on the window and copy it all. Inside of our project, right click on data, click new file, and just type, name this final underscore data.json, and then just paste it in here and save it, and that's the data. So again, I'm going to be using an API call later on, probably in another video, but this is just to get things up and running. Now that we have our globe, and now that we have our data, I'm going to start off by first removing the geometry, the cube geometry, from the project, and instead I'm going to add earth. So I'm going to say add earth is equal to, and it's going to be an arrow function, const earth map. It's going to equal new 3.texture loader dot load. And so I'm going to say import, and I'm just call this earth map, all lowercase, from, and then I'm going to go up one. Using 2 dots, it's going to go to the parent folder, so I'm going to go up from my globe to my components, then from my components to my source, then I'm going to get to my assets, images, and then I want to type in the earth map 4K, earth map 4K .jpg. Then I'm going to be doing this for the bump, clouds, lights, and spec. Well, I won't be doing it for the clouds, but I'll be doing it for the others, so you can still use them for the clouds if you want. So in the next one, I'm going to do earth bump, but as a kind of shortcut in VS Code, if you double click on this variable and press Ctrl D, it's going to take you to the next matching text. So instead of saying earth map, here I can type earth bump, and it's going to change this text right here and makes things easier. I'm going to create my earth bump, and then I want to do my earth spec. So again, earth spec. Let me go back down to where I have my texture loader. So inside my texture loader, I want to go inside of here, type my earth map. Then I'm going to copy this 2 more times. So the earth map is going to be the earth bump map, and then the last one is going to be earth spec map. And then it's going to be earth bump map and earth spec map, which these should, earth bump and then earth spec. So these should give us the earth, and then I need my geometry, so I'm going to say const earth geometry is equal to new 3 dot, and I'm using sphere geometry. And then inside of here, I'm going to put 10 as the radius, 32 as the width, and 32 as the height. Then I want to get my material, so the const earth material is equal to new 3 dot, and then this is going to be the type of material. In my case, I'm using mesh fong material. So it's going to be open parentheses, open close braces. And inside here, I'm going to type map, and then I'm going to map my textures to my materials. So I'm going to say map earth map. Bump map is going to be the earth bump map, and then my bump scale is going to be equal to 0.10 or 0.1, same thing. Then I'm going to say my specular map is going to be earth spec map. and then I want my specular to be a new 3.color, which is capitalized. That was my mistake. And I want to put this as gray. So that's that. But then I need to combine my geometry with my material. So I'll say this.earthSphere is equal to new 3.mesh. And inside of my mesh, I want to type earth geometry to map my geometry. And then I want to map my material. So earth material. And then I want to put my earth sphere as a variable. I want to name it. So I'm going to say this.earthSphere dot name is equal to, and then put earth sphere. I then want to add this to the scene. Because I have scene as a variable within my instantiated within my class, I just type this dot scene dot add this dot earth sphere. So this then instantiates an earth. So we go to create scene, and I add the function this dot add earth. It will add the earth under my create scene, which my create scene is instantiated when a component mounts. So in when we did vanilla JavaScript, everything was in functions, as you could see previously. So we had to pass everything in as variables. Because I'm using classes in React, you can just pass them straight from one function to another by instantiating them throughout the entire class, which I think is pretty cool. You could probably have done that in other Java too, but I did it here instead. Anyways, so now that I have my earth, I want to add my skybox, and because we have our skybox photos here, I want to add them now. But before I do that, I actually need to I need to import the photos. So I'm going to import, actually I'm just going to get rid of this since we're not using that. Say import, then I'm going to say space underscore right from, and then just like before, go to the source folder, go to assets, images, and then I want to put in space right.png, and then just do this for the left, top, bot, front, back. So instead of space right, it'll be space left, space top, space bot, space front, and then we have space back. So under my earth, on my line 60, above start animation, underneath add earth, I'm going to create a new function called add skybox. And inside of here, I'm just going to create something called const skybox is equal to new 3.cube texture loader, and say dot load. So it's going to be open close parentheses, and unlike previously where you had open close braces, this is going to be an array, so it's going to be open close brackets. And then I'm just going to pass in the variables. These do have to be in proper order, so it's going to be space right, space left, and actually let me put them on their own line. It makes things a little bit easier. Space left, space top, space bot, space front, and space back. And then I'm going to create this to my background, and because scene has a background attribute, I'm just going to set this to that. So I'll put the scene as this dot scene dot background. It's going to be equal to skybox. So this dot add skybox. And then lastly, what I need to do is get my lights. Because I'm using mesh fong material, it does not, by default, it goes dark. So you need to use lights for that. So underneath my skybox, I'm going to create a function called add lights. It's going to be parentheses arrow function, and just going to create an array called const lights is equal to empty array. And I'm going to just put in lights sub 0 is equal to new 3.pointLight. And then you can put in whatever color you want. I'm using white just because these are supposed to be like stars. So I'm going to put in a hex color for white, which is 0x 6fs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fs. Then I want to have the intensity set to 0.3. And then I want to have the distance set to 0. And then I'm going to do this for 2 more point lights. And then I want to have ambient light. So in lights sub 1, I'm going to just change the intensity to 0.4. In light sub 2, I'm going to change this to 0.7. And then instead of light sub 3 being a point light, I want to have this be ambient light. So I'm just going to call this ambient light. And then this does not take in anything but a hex color or a color value. So in this case, I'm just going to put in the hex value 0x 706570. And you don't need to add semicolons, but I just do that for good practice. So then I need to set my lights position. Because ambient does not require a position, it's ambient, so it's just there. The point lights do need to have position set, because by default it's 0, 0, 0. So for light sub 0 dot position dot set, I'm going to set it to 0, 200, 0. Then I just copy this 2 more times for the second and third point light. So the second one is going to be at 200, 100, 400. And the last one is going to be at negative 200, negative 200, negative 50. And then I need to add the lights to the scene. So I'm going to say this dot scene dot add, and then just put lights sub 0, then 1, 2, 3. So then 1, 2, 3. Then back in my create scene, I need to instantiate this. So I'm going to add the earth, add the skybox, this dot add light. This is a function, so you need to add parentheses at the end of texture loader. That was my mistake. I apologize. See how I did it here, but I forgot to do it here. So then if I refresh this, let me just make sure there's not any issues. Yeah. So now you can see we have our globe. Zoom in, zoom out. I'm going to disable the zoom because just for austerity purposes, what we need to do is go to our API folder, which is empty. We're going to right click and create a new file called index.js. So then inside our index.js, what we're going to do is load the raw data from the folder, from the file that I have local in my data folder, which I will be changing in the next video. But for right now, I'm just importing the data. So I'm going to say import. Then it's just say point data from, and then /data/final data.json. Then I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to export it. So I say export const fetch point data local. It's going to be an arrow function, and it's going to be try catch. So try const response is equal to, and there's going to be point data, return response, and then just make sure it works. We can do a console.log and then put the response as the log. Oh wait. And then we have a catch error. Let's say console.log unable to load local data. So then, now that I have my index.json, I need to go to my app, and inside my app, what I'm going to do, my app.js, and inside my app.js, I'm going to create a constructor. So actually, I'm just going to, I'm going to create a constructor, props, input super props, and then I'm going to say this dot state is equal to open close curly braces and put point data, and it's going to be a colon open close braces. So then for component did mount, I'm going to put const fetch const fetched point data local is equal to, and then because I have it as fetch point data local here, what I need to do is go to my app.js and do an import. So I'll do an import open close braces, and then say from /assets API, and then inside of here I'm going to set my fetch data to my function, and then I want to have a this.setState, and then it's going to be parentheses, braces, and then I want to set my point data to my fetched point. Now this can be any name that you want. I just, because I'm going to be using API call later, I want to distinguish between the two, but you can name this however you want, it doesn't matter. So then if I go to here, then because I did that, if I go to here, then I go to my console here, you can see that I have an array. Inside my array, I have the data which I'm loaded from my JSON. Cool. So I can get rid of that. That was just to check to make sure that the data was loaded, and yes, it's loaded. So now that I have my data here, what I want to do is pass my data into my component, but because you need to have a specific, you can't just pass the data straight in, you have to create its own constructor to export it as props. So I'm going to call this const, and then I'm going to say point data, because it's the point data here. I'm going to say is equal to this dot state, and then in my globe, actually it's going to be this dot state dot point data, and then I have to get rid of the braces. So inside globe, I'm going to pass it in props, which my props, I'm just going to call point data is equal to open close braces point data. Now if I go to my globe, so instead of this dot state dot point data, let me put this inside open close braces. Okay, I guess get rid of this constructor. Oh, that's right. So even though it loads the data. It doesn't actually take the data in right away, because when it mounts, it just creates the scene. If you wanted to load the data right away, you'd have to say component did update. So inside of here, if you type a console.log and then do this .props.point data, yeah, see, now it loads. That is how you would have the data be updated straight into the scene. And if you wanted to actually add the coordinates onto the Earth itself, we can do that now. So under add light, what we want to do is create a function. It's going to be add coord. Inside here, we're going to be passing it all the data from our API. So status bureau country post latitude longitude, then the languages, and then the social, and then the embassy URL. And then we also want to pass it in a color, so let's put color. Let's make this 4. And then it's going to be an arrow function. So then I'll say let lat equal latitude, let lon equal longitude. We're going to pass in the radius constant. Radius is equal to 10. Which you could customize that if you had a different radius. Then we'll have const phi is equal to 90 minus lat times math.pi times math.pi divided by 180. Then we have theta. So theta is going to be ln plus 180 times math.pi divided by 180. Then we're going to create a vertex, so const vertex is equal to a new 3.vertex, or sorry, vector 3. Do vertex.x is equal to negative, and then inside we have 2 sets of parentheses, so it's going to be radius, and then times math.sine phi times math.cosine of theta. Then we're doing y and z, so the y and z. So in y, it's just going to be the radius times math.cosine of phi. And then z is going to be radius times math of sine phi times math of sine theta. And then we need to create our particles, right? Point geo is equal to new, yeah, here, let me just get rid of this. So it's going to be sphere geometry, and that's just going to be 0.1, 32, 32. Then we have the point material. This was my mistake. Point mat, and that's just going to be mesh basic. It's going to be color, and then the mesh is going to be new 3 mesh. And then it's going to be point geo, point mat. Then it's going to be point mesh dot position dot set vertex dot x, vertex dot y, vertex dot z. Once you put the point mesh dot rotation dot set, it's going to be 0.0 negative ln lat minus math dot pi times 0.5. Then I'm going to say point mesh dot user data dot, and then I'm going to be copying in this information. So the dot status is equal to status bureau is equal to bureau, country is equal to country. Just get rid of all this, and that. So then we have post lat long lang social embassy. So post is going to be post lat long languages social status social. I just accidentally removed social. The commas you can get rid of. And then at the very end, because I have everything here, I want to say this dot earth sphere dot add, and then it's going to be point mesh. So then, now that I have my coordinates, what I need to do is add my, I need to create a function to add the actual objects themselves. So above my coordinates and before my lights, before my chords and after my lights, I should say, I'm going to create a function called add scene objects is equal to arrow function. We can just create a function. I can say for let I is equal to 0, I is less than this dot props dot point data dot length I plus plus. If this dot props dot point data sub I dot bureau is equal to EUR. And then I have to do this for the NEA as well. And then I have to do this for the SCA. And the EAP. Then the AF. WHA. So then inside of here, I'm just going to pass in the variables I have here. So say this dot add chord. So the color is going to be red, and then I'm just going to say this dot props data sub I, and then just copy paste. For the, this is a little bit cleaner. Just do it all for all of the variables passed in. And then we're just going to copy this whole thing for each and everything. But instead of red, I'm going to do yellow, and you can change the colors how you want. Do orange, red, do some pink just to brighten things up, and then put white. And then for the bottom one, put blue. Now, to make things a little bit more tidy, we can just tab over so you can differentiate the function from the variables passed in. Do the component did update and do this dot add scene objects. See, it now has the variables loaded on our globe. But if I were to take this away and have it empty, then they would not load. See? No points. But as I said, we do not want to be reliant on the component did update, but I want to make this more interactive, so I'm going to now add a function that's going to handle my my on-click functions. So under the add coord, I'm going to create a function called add embassy points is equal to, then you pass in an event variable, and first I would say event.prevent default. So I do not want this to execute by itself. And then I want to say this dot add scene objects. And then I do want to create a remove, because I want to add later on functionality to remove points. I'm just going to create my function to do that now so I can have it for later on. So underneath here I'm going to say remove children is equal to arrow function, say let destroy is equal to this dot earthsphere dot children dot length. Say while destroy minus this dot earthsphere dot remove this dot earthsphere dot children, and then we're going to pass in brackets destroy. Then for our states, we need to pass in our functions. We need to bind our functions. So first I'm going to create a constructor, pass in props, and then I'm going to pass in super props. Say this dot state, and then I want to I'll keep that a variable for now because of the data, but underneath that I'm going to say this dot oh, it's not supposed to be embass points, it's supposed to be embassy points. This dot add embassy. Okay. So I need to do this dot add embassy points is equal to this dot add embassy points dot bind this. You do the same thing for remove children. So this dot remove children is equal to this dot remove children dot bind this. Let me get rid of that. Cool. So now that I have this, what I want to do is create a component that will handle my interactions with the user. So under my components, I'm going to create a new folder, call this button box, and then just like previously, I'm creating a new file called buttonbox.jsx, and then a second one is going to be buttonbox.module.css. So then in my button box, what I'm going to do is import react, comma, braces, or curly braces component from react, and I'm going to import styled from at emotion styled, and then I'm going to import styles from button box.module.css. So inside of here, first I need to create my class and call it button box extends component, and then inside of here, just like before, I'm going to have a render return, and then at the very bottom I'm going to export default button box, and then inside my index I need to put my button box. So then inside of my, so above my button box class, what I want to do is create a button, and for that I'm going to be using the emotion library to accomplish this. So I'm going to just say const button is equal to styled.button, and then instead of doing quotes or braces or parentheses, I'm going to be doing the tilde key, so the key next to the number 1 on the QWERTY keyboard. So then inside of here, I'm going to say background dash color is going to set to purple, and honestly, I'm not the best at styling, so please change how you see fit. But I'm going to have my background color to purple, have my color to white, so this is going to be the text color. and have my width be at 50%, my height be at 25%. I'm going to have my border radius set to 10%. I want to also implement a CSS on hover for the style, so I'm going to put ampersand colon hover, open close braces, and inside here I want to have my background color be set to orange red, and then I want to have the cursor set to pointer, because by default it will just look like a regular mouse like that. There's not going to be anything else, so you want to make sure that the cursor is, that the user knows that the cursor has hovered over something which they can interact with. And then after the hover, I want to have the button focused, so if the button has been focused, ampersand colon focus, I want to have the background color to be orange red. So then inside of my component, I want to pass in the constructor props super props. For my return, I want to have a div here, which then inside this div I'm going to put my button. So then, now that I have this, I need to go and style my button. So inside of my button box.module.css, I want to have my .button box, which is going to be this right here. Class name is equal to styles.buttonbox. So my button box, I want to have the background color set to black. I want to have the position set to relative, or fixed. I want to have the display be flex, in case I want to add more buttons. I want the flex direction to be up in column. I want to have the height set to 20%, and the width set to 15%. I want it to be 5% from the bottom, and I want it to be 5% from the right. So it's going to be 5% up from the bottom, 5% from the right, so somewhere over here. I want to justify the content in the center, align items center, the border style. I want to have as outset the border radius. I want to have as 10%, and then the opacity set to 100. That's actually it for my button box. Inside of my button box.jsx though, I do want to add two things. First, I need to have the variant in my button. So I'm going to set the variant is equal to contained, and then I need to have an onClick. It's going to be a callback function, so event, and then I need to create a function that will handle this event. So then I'm going to say handle point click is equal to pass in the event, and I want to do event.preventDefault, and then I want to I'm going to be passing in the function that will add points to the globe. So I'm going to do this dot props and then as we add embassy points, then you need to pass in the event. And then for my return handler, it's going to be this dot handle point click to pass in the event, and then I need to make sure my constructor that I have this function bind. So I'm going to say this dot handle point click is equal to this dot handle point click dot bind this. So if I go back to my globe, and then actually for the button, I'm going to be adding text to this. So then I'm going to say this dot props dot button 1. So then in my globe, at the top, import button box from index.js. Now I can use this component inside of my my render function. So then I'm going to just say button box, and then I have it passing into two props. So the first one's going to be button 1 is equal to, in this case, it's going to be points. And then the second is going to be add embassy points. So then inside my button box, it's going to be add embassy points is equal to, and then this in right here. Events, this dot add embassy points event, close it off. That is it. So then I'm just going to add an empty React thing here, and there we go. So I have my points, click on this, and the points are there. There is a bug with this though. I forget how to add it set to selected. So once you click on this, it stays orange, because if I click on here, because it's a different element, it points away. So I need to figure out how to fix that. But and then I need to put the font size to something bigger, like 25 pixels, and then I need to put the font weight to bold. There we go. So now people can see points, and then it appears. So if I refresh this, there are no points. Click on points. Now there are points on the globe. Now that I have my button box and adding points, I also want to create my component for the title. So I'm going to create a new folder, call this title, and inside, under my components, and then inside my title, again, title.jsx, make sure it's capitalized because React needs capitalized components with folders, with files, and then I'm going to call this title.module.css. So then, just like before, what we want to do is import React component from React, and we want to import styles from title.module.css. Then we want to create the class title extends component. Inside here I just want to render and a return. And then it's going to be a div for the ID is equal to title subtitle, and then inside of here and inside of there I'm going to have my two other divs. So it's going to be id is equal to main title, and then the other ID is going to equal main subtitle, and then we're going to create our, let me close out these other stuff, globe, index, title. Okay, so inside here, for my title subtitle, I'm going to give it a class name is equal to styles.title underscore subtitle. I'm just going to copy this. Main underscore title, and then main underscore subtitle. So in my main, I'm going to call this React Globe by David Price, and then I need to export default title. I need to add this to my index. So it's a title. So inside my title.module.css, what I need to do is add my stylings. So dot title underscore subtitle. Text align is going to be center. Position is going to be absolute. Then you have display flex, flex direction, column, width is going to be 40 VW, height will be 25 VH, border color or border style is going to be outset, border color is going to be white, border radius is going to be 10%, the right is going to be 30 VW, top is going to be 35 VH, then opacity is going to be 100%. Then dot main title is going to have padding top be 5%. Then the font size is going to be 50 points. And then the main subtitle padding top is going to be 1%. Font size 25 pt. So now that I have my title here, I have it inside my index. I'm going to now import it into my globe. So after button box, I'm going to put title, and then I'm going to instantiate it here at the bottom. So above button box, I'm going to put title. If I save this, now it should be here, but the color is not white, so inside here I need to put my color as white, and now my text is white. So that is how you do the component. But because we want to view the points on our globe, right now the title interferes with that. So what I'm going to do is create some logic so that if the button is pressed, the title goes away. Otherwise, if the title is active, set to true, then there are no points. But when you click on the button, the title is going to disappear and the points are going to activate. So I go to my globe here. Inside React, there's this thing called conditional rendering. So inside my state, I'm going to put in a variable called title active and set that to false. And I'm going to say points active, set that to false. Actually, no, title active I'm going to set to true, because by default I want it to appear. So then inside of my add embassy points, yeah, I can get rid of the commanded update. We don't need this. That's bad code to keep. So here, what I want to do is do a this dot set state and do a title active to false, points active to true, and then I want to add the same objects. So then inside my code right here, I'm going to put open close braces, and then I'm going to say title. Well, first I have to instantiate that. So first I'm going to, under my render, put const title active is equal to this dot state dot title active, and then say this dot, or const points active equal to this dot state dot points active. So then, yeah, so then inside here I'm going to say, is the title active? Then I want to return title. Otherwise, I want to return an empty element. So if I refresh this, this is title active, right? So right now the title is active. There are no points clicked. I'm going to click on this. The title goes away, and the points are here. We can try it again. Refresh. Title active. Click on this. It goes away. So that is how you do conditional rendering of components based upon states. And then for our next thing, what we want to do is add the box at the bottom, right? So whenever I hover over these points, I want to see what point I've hovered over. So in order to do that, I need to implement raycasting. So I'm going to create a function right above my render resize. Actually, no, I'm going to place it with my animation. So then I'm going to say on mouse move is equal to event arrow function event.prevent default. Then I'm going to create a mouse vector. So I'll say that mouse equal to new 3.vector2, because it's a two dimensional vector, which it takes an x and y component. So I'm going to say mouse.x is equal to event.client x divided by window dot inner width. Then on the outside of that, but still within the second parameter, I'm going to say times 2 minus 1. And then for the mouse dot y, I'm going to say it's going to be the negative of the event client y divided by window dot inner height. and then it's going to be times 2 plus 1. Then I'm going to create my raycaster, so let raycaster is equal to new 3.raycaster. Then I'm going to have a raycaster.set from camera, mouse, comma, this dot camera. And then I'm going to create an intersect. So if the mouse intersects or something, I want to retrieve whatever data from that point. So I'm going to say let intersects is equal to raycaster dot intersects objects, this dot earth sphere dot children. Then I'm going to say if the intersects dot length is greater than 0. So if there's nothing, if there's more than something in the array, if the array is not null, I'll say for let I is equal to 0, I is less than intersects dot length I plus plus. And then I'm going to have a set state. So first I need to create the variable. What I want to do is store the data. So I'm going to say point hovered is equal to false by default. And then I want to get the point hovered name. And then I'm going to get the country data. And then it's going to give me so that's going to be this dot set state. So then what I want to do is set the point hovered to true because it hit something. I want to get the point hovered name is equal to the intersects first point dot object dot user data dot post in this case, but we can always change it later on. Then I'm going to set the country data to intersects sub 0 dot object dot user data. And then if it is not greater than 0, so I'm going to say else this dot set state point hovered is going to be false. Point hovered name is going to be empty, and then country data is going to be returned to an empty array. So I want to create a click, so on mouse click, which is essentially the same thing, but instead of doing all of this, it's going to simply be here. I'll let this off right now. But this is what we're going to use. So when we click on a point, it pops up with the modal. So this is our mouse move, but we need to first create the component that will hover when it gets hit. So under my components, I'm going to right click, create a new folder. Then on this, I'm going to call this country name box. Then right click, new file, country name box.jsx, new file, country name box.module.css. So then inside of my country name box, just like before, it's going to be import react. Oh, whoops, that's not the right one. There we go. Inside country name box.jsx, it's going to be react component from react, then import styles from country name box.module.css. I'm going to do a class country name box extends component. We do not need a constructor in here because we're just rendering a simple block component, so all we really need is a render return, and then inside here it's just going to be a simple div. I'm giving it a class name equal to styles dot country name. And then I'm going to pass this prop, so this dot props dot name. Export default country name box. Put this into my index. So country name box. So then inside of my styles, what I want to do is create a country name. Background color is going to be black. The color of the text is going to be white. Position is going to be fixed. Display is going to be flex. Height is going to be 5%. Width is going to be 10%. Justify content is going to be center. Align items is going to be center. The border style is going to be outset. Border color is going to be white. Border radius is going to be 10%. The bottom is going to be 5% because I went 5% from the bottom. Then from the left, it's going to be 45%. Which you can change this however you seem fit. So then inside the globe, what I want to do is import my country name box. So then, just like before, where I have is title active. So then, instead of is title active, I'm going to ask, is the are points active? If that is the case, hovered is point hovered? If yes, then I want to do country name box with the name equal to, and then it's going to be, country name box name is going to be equal to point hovered name. Otherwise, it's just going to be an empty element. And then, since this is a to condition, right, so if my points are active, if the point is hovered, then I'll have this displayed, but otherwise, I just want to have it return an empty element. So here, let me see if y'all can see this better. So are the points active? So is the point hovered name is not defined. Line 260. Oh, yeah. So then it's going to be point hovered point hover name. Okay, so again, for every conditional, you have to make sure that it's passed in as a constant from the state. So if points are active, so if I've pressed the points button, it's true, okay? But if I've hovered over a point, then I want to have this country name box display. Or otherwise, I want to have it return an empty element. Otherwise, if the points aren't active, I just want to return a empty element. Yes, because I haven't added the on mouse move. So in React, typically you would have a window add event listener. So you could do something like this, and you can just do, I think it's on hover or something like that. But you do not need to have that in this case because React has built-in mouse movements for their components. So inside my div here, I'm going to say on mouse move is equal to this dot on mouse move, and then say on mouse or on click equal to this dot on mouse click, which on mouse move, oh, on mouse, that would also be y, on mouse click. Points. So see, now the now it hovers, right? If you click on it, so now the points are here. So that is for the on mouse move. And now what we need to do is create the modal. So when I click on a box, I want to have the modal appear. So then above the country data, country modal active, set that to false. So then in my onClick function, I'm going to uncomment this out and, whoops, uncomment it out, and just do on modal active to true. And what we need to do is create our folder for the country modal. So I'm going to create a new folder under components, call this country modal. So here, create a new file, country modal.jsx. Create a second new file, country modal.module.css. So just like before, what I want to do is import React component, and then I'm to import styles from country modal module .css. Then I want to say import styled from at emotion styled, and then I want to create a button. So inside here, I'm going to say const button is equal to styled dot button, and then again, it's going to be the key, the tilde key next to the number. So I'm going to say background color, set this to salmon. The color is going to be white. The width will be 50%. Height is going to be 25%. Border radius is going to be 10%. Align self is going to be center. Then when I'm hovering, I want the background color to be purple. Cursor to be pointer. Then I'm going to do a class country modal extends component for the button. So I'm going to have my modal up here, and if I want to close the box, I'm going to have a button that's going to close it. So I'm going to create a function called close modal is equal to event.prevent default this dot, and I'm going to pass in the modal active event. So then under here, I'm going to have my render, return, and then at the very bottom, I'm going to have my export default country modal. So then inside of my return, I'm going to have a main section. And then inside my main section, I'm going to have a section. And then inside my section, I'm going to have a div for my modal main. Then for my modal main, I'm going to have a container. And then inside my container, I'm going to have my header. And then I'm going to have an h1 with the this dot props dot data dot country, because it's coming from the country of the data, the data being passed in from the point. So then underneath this, I'm going to have a div for the container. And then I'm going to have conditional rendering. So I'm going to say if this dot props dot data, and then I'm just going to put status does not equal null, then I'm going to return a div for the div. I'm going to make a small section for the div itself, and then inside the div I'm going to have another one for the class. This is going to be data div, and then this is going to be data div text. And then inside here, I'm just gonna create a for the status, it's gonna be status colon and this dot props dot data dot status. Otherwise, I'm just gonna return an empty thing, an empty element. And then I'm going to have two data containers, so one on the left and one on the right. So it's going to be data on the left and data on the right. Oh, whoops. So then inside my country modal, let me begin styling this. That way we can have it taken care of. And we can just import the data. So for my .modal main, I'm going to have a position be set to fixed. Display is going to be flex. Background is going to be RGBA. It's going to be 255, 255, 255, 0.3. Width is going to be 100%. Oh. Width is going to be 100%. Height is going to be 100%. Top is going to be 50%. Left is going to be 50%. I'm going to transform this to be translated by 50% or negative 50%. Negative 50%. Z-index is going to be 5 because I want it to be seen above the other elements. I'm going to have the color set to black. Justify content center, then align items to center. So this is the modal main. So if we go to modal main, it's going to be class name styles dot modal main. And then our next one's be main container. Position is going to be fixed. Display flex. Width is going to be 90%. Height is going to be 90%. Background is going to be RGBA 0, 0, 0, 1. Then I want to have a border radius of 5%. Justify content center. Align items is going to be center. Align self is going to be center. This is main container. So inside the main container, class name equals styles dot main container. Then next we have our header. Inside our header we have position. It's going to be fixed. Display is going to be flex. Height is going to be 15%. Width is going to be 20%. Top is going to be 7%. I'm going to justify the content to be center. I'm going to align items to be center. I'm going to align self to be center. And we have the Z index to 5. So this is the header. Class name and then we also have our font, right? So then we're going to do dot header font. font size is going to be 35px. Color is going to be white because I want it to be white. Justify content is going to be center. Background color is going to be salmon. Width is going to be 100%. Text align is going to be center. Border radius is going to be 10%. There we go. So then we have our data container. Inside our data container, we're going to have a position set to fixed. Width is going to be 85%. Height is going to be 85%. Display is going to be flex. Flex direction is going to be row, because I want to have 2 columns, and row is going to be this way. Then I want to have the background color set to gray. Border radius set to 5%. Justify content is going to be space around. And then I want to have align items set to center. So that's going to be class name styles dot. And then this is the same thing as this right here. So then now we have our data container, we have our data div container. Dot data div container. Color white. Background color white. Position relative. Width 45%. Height is going to be 70%. Display is going to be flex. Flex direction is going to be column, because I want to have the data lined up and down. The border radius I'm going to set to 5%. Justify content I'm going to set to space around. Then align items I'm going to set to center. So actually I need to add one more thing, so it's actually a div here. So data div container. Class name is equal to styles dot data div container. And then inside our data div container we have these here. So just copy this. Just paste it right here. So we have our data container, data div container, and then we do our conditional rendering for each object in the JSON. So then after our data div container, we simply have the data div and the data div text. So dot data div. Color is going to be white. Background is going to be salmon, which is not going to look too pretty. Position is going to be relative. Width is going to be 80%. Height is going to be 10%. I want to have this display as flex and have the flex direction set to column. Then this is going to be data div. style, data div, and then we have our last one, which is dot data div text. Color white. Font size, I want it to be pretty big, so 25 pixels. Padding top, I want it to have at 2%. And we want to have the padding left at like 3%. Font weight, we want it to be bold. And then we want to have the text overflow as clip. Overflow set to visible. And then white space, no wrap. Class name, styles dot. Okay, so this is how our rendering is going to look like. Just copy paste that there. So now that I have my status, let me look at my data to see what I have. Data. So I have status, bureau, country, post, lat, long, language, social, embassy. I think if I put the country is going to be at the top. So that's country, so that takes care of one. So I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I can break this down 4 and 4. So what I think I'm going to do is have my status, bureau, post, and languages be on the left, then lat, long, social, and embassy be on the right. So then let me just copy paste this 2, 3, 4, and then instead of status, see what I said, bureau, and then posts, and then languages. And then I want to have it be cancel. Then I want it to be latitude, oh, whoops. Forgot to change the conditional. There we go. Latitude, longitude, and then social, then embassy URL. But let me see, because I think I passed this in as embassy. That's what I thought. I need to change this. Okay, so then that's my country. But then I need to also implement my button. But before I do that, I need to make a div for my button itself. So then I'm going to add one more button div. Position is going to be fixed. Display is going to be flex. Flex direction is going to be column height. It's going to be 15%, width 15%, bottom 5%, justify content, center, align items, center, and then align self to be center too. Then I have this z index to be 10. So then if I go to my country modal, this will take me to the end of the 1, 2. Inside here, I'm going to put class name button div. Then put button variant contained on click equals event this dot close modal event, and then I'm going to pass in text close. So let me go back to my globe now, and when I go back to my globe, I need to create a function that is going to above remove children. So I'm going to call this close modal. Say event dot prevent default. This dot set state country modal active to false, and then country data to an empty array. And then I need to go up here, this dot close modal is equal to this dot close modal dot bind this, and then what I need to do is create a condition. So then I'm going to make a const country modal active is equal to this dot country this dot state dot country modal active. Then I'm going to say const country data is equal to this dot state dot country data. So then underneath my here, let me make this a little more easier to read. There we go. So then I'm going to say country modal active. If yes, then I want to return see country modal. I have not added it here yet, so let me add it here. Country modal whoops, I just meant there. Then for globe, I need to import country modal. So now that I have country modal, it's going to give me an error saying we cannot find this thing. So I have country modal and say country modal is equal to country modal active. Data is equal to country data modal active is equal to callback function event this dot close modal event. And we can actually make this a little bit easier. So you can modal data, modal active. Oh, that's why. I need to put this right there. And then I need to close this off. There we go. Do this, put you right here, put you right there, shift you up one more. Okay. Okay, so this should work. Let's try this out. Oh, it's just one data container. That's why. Okay. So there's a slight issue. There's only supposed to be one data container, not two. So this data div container needs to have its closing tag right above the button, and that fixes the issue. So this is what it looks like. Obviously the coloring isn't the best, but you can change it how you want. This is just, again, a proof of concept to let you know that it is possible. So you have your status, bureau, post, language, and you can change the components to whatever you'd like. But that is basically it for this tutorial. I know it's a rather long video, but it's fun. React is fun. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's excellent for UI. It's like the go-to standard for UI besides Angular. So yeah, that's that. I hope you all enjoyed. But before we actually go, we need to do one more thing, and that is our repository. So now that we have our Git init, what we need to do is load our data onto the repository. So I just need to copy the URL that I'm using. In this case, this is my repository right here. So then I need to do git add star, and let me actually just close out this, and then do git commit -m created globe with points and UI fixes. And so I need to git remote add main, git push -- set -up stream main upstream main master. So this is going to upload all of the information. Git will ignore the node modules. Typically you don't want to upload the node modules because they're extremely big. So then it's going to say master had a recent push less than a minute ago. So then if you click under main, you have main and then master has our information. So that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. In the next video I'm going to be doing API and other stuff like that, so we'll get a better understanding of this. But in the meantime, have a great time, week, day, whatever. I'll talk with you then. Goodbye.